This came out, and no, this was not a new Wii game. Star Wars: The Force Awakens title was revealed to be the Episode 7 title. Comes out December 2015. Of course, this is a Disney venture now since they bought Star Wars already. They bought it 2 years ago.
Yeah,
almost. They got the rights to basically all the Lucasfilm stuff. So I think most people think this is a pretty good title. I mean, there's not many details known yet on this, but I have some guesses that might come to pass about what sort of this title sort of means. But what do you think about the title overall? That's always a big thing. I think it's a pretty good title.
Yeah, I do too. A lot of the people I've talked to, I can't believe we're discussing a title.
But it's always a big sort of thing.
A lot of people that I've talked to especially with Star Wars. A lot of people I've talked to haven't liked it. Which is weird. Online, the reaction seems mixed. I don't understand how you can get really worked up over a title. I like it because I think it really hints at where the movie is kind of going to start off. I think it's going to take place, timeline-wise, obviously after Return of the Jedi, and I think it's going to be in a time where the Force is kind of regarded as a myth, or kind of it's had its heyday. It's done. Right, exactly.
It's just maybe you have Luke, you have Leia using a little bit, and maybe they're kids, but there's no more probably Jedi Council around. Mm-hmm. Obviously,
yes.
They're still trying to rebuild the Republic. There's no school, there's no Jedi Temple, so
that would
there's probably no Sith, or so we probably think there's no Sith probably beginning of the movie. It's like it's kind of just what's the Force right now.
Right. So I think the title hints to kind of like a clean slate for the movies and the films,
which is great.
Yes, that's actually very heartening for me, because the more and more I think about the prequels and I try to justify any enjoyment I had from them, which was mostly drug related, I hate them. I always have, but like even when I go back to them, I dislike them even more every time I think about them. So I really kind of want something to erase that taste from my mouth.
I'm not going to... Obviously, taste in film is subjective, but overall, critically, the prequels are failures. Especially Episode 1 and 2. Revenge of the Sith has its moments. Even that, narratively, is a mess.
This is how I described... Because we were actually talking about this at work earlier. Because even though I'm not a huge Star Wars fan... I know. But when you work in a video game store, things like Star Wars just come up out of the blue and you have to talk about it. And... the skeleton of the movie, the basic framework of the film, I had no problem with.
Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah, like I enjoyed kind of how it was tying things together. I enjoyed what the story wanted to be and the general idea behind it. But the acting was just so bad, and the directing was just so bad, that it took what could have been a really enjoyable chapter of that movie and made it, honestly, nearly unwatchable.
Well, I've always... this will become the whole what Pat would have done with the prequels. No one asked to see a 9-year-old Anakin. No one ever envisioned that they wanted to see that.
My buddy said that earlier.
No one did. Yeah. So you make Episode 2, Episode 1. Hell, you can keep the plot the same for the most part. Start him as a teenager, a whiny teenager, or what have you. Start there, and then basically the stuff that happens in Episode 3 could be split over two movies to let it breathe, let the Clone Wars breathe, and the aftermath of that, and then have the whole turn be the entire third movie instead of the second half of the third movie where. Right. Oh, all of a sudden the Emperor's skin is now foldy, and I'm going to slice off Mace's hand, and so now I'm evil. Like that was the turn to Darth Vader.
The turn was let's kill all these kids, and then
no, the turn was before that though. He anointed him Darth Vader before that, just so he has a chance of saving Padme. Which again, after all the hoopla about why does this guy turn evil? Oh, because he's heartbroken. That's why he turns into the most evil villain in cinema history, because he's heartbroken. That's basically it. That can be any movie. So it's like
I was gonna say
everything was a letdown. Supposedly, the word is that when George Lucas first showed the first draft of that film, Revenge of the Sith, to the staff and everything, they even said they didn't understand why Anakin turned. That's not good when you're showing that to like the people in creative, like why, like they didn't get it.
The people who are supposed to be the most behind you don't understand what the hell you're doing.
Yeah, so
that's bad.
So here's the thing. Here's why. Obviously, you have a much better director. Lucas is so far away from these films. You have Abrams doing them, and if it's the style of the two new Star Trek films, that's fine, because they're more like Star Wars films than Star Trek anyway. In terms of the tone. But I like the fact that, especially that the numeral 7 is not front and center; it's gone.
Yeah,
it's almost like this is a whole new start of a sort of new series of films.
No numeral, Force Awakens. I have a feeling that by the second one they do, all vestiges of the past movies will be gone.
Sure.
I mean, the lore will exist, but the characters, such as Luke and Leia, and
I'm sure Luke will still be in there. I think.
I feel like and it's not that I don't like those characters, and it's not that I don't think they can do something with those characters.
They're not going to kill off all the original characters.
No, they're not going to kill them off. No, what I'm saying is, though, the sooner they try to make it their own thing and stop trying to bring in parts from past movies, the better off that whole series is going to be.
I was actually surprised when they announced that Han Solo would come back.
Right, me too.
I thought that, well, his story's sort of over. Why not just at least have him a cameo, but don't make him a main character, or have him sort of do his own thing. I always knew that, Luke would be like the Jedi Master like Obi-Wan was. That made sense.
Yeah, but just like Obi-Wan wasn't actually a major character in New Hope, that doesn't mean that Luke has to be I mean,
he was a major character in New Hope.
Okay, New Hope he was. Not so much afterwards. I guess that's what I'm getting at. I guess that's what I'm getting at. So they don't have to kill him off.
This will be the bridge movie.
Yeah.
This will be the bridge movie, and we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be cool. I have mixed feelings about them not basically saying the expanded universe canon now doesn't exist anymore. Mixed feelings, because there was some cool stuff that they had with that. I know they had the Heir of the Empire and the Thrawn trilogy, and not that you expected that to be these movies, but if they were, I think people would have been juiced for that, because those were really highly regarded in the 90s as good books.
I feel like we've discussed this before, maybe not on here, but personally. My whole thing with that is I understand, but we are getting to the point where the people who really care about that stuff are not the target audience for these movies anymore. And to bring that stuff in risks confusing more people than it does.
Well, I don't know about confusing, because they're not going to know that was based on books from 20 years ago. What, they came out in 93, those books about?
Well, sure, but that's the other point. I mean, these are books that are 20 years old. They don't really need that stuff. But by not addressing it, you don't exactly have to wipe it from canon. You just don't have to address it.
Well, they chose not to do that. I'm more, not upset, but I always loved the character of Kyle Katarn from the Dark Forces video games, and that was always sort of kind of canon, and now I guess it's not anymore.
No, that was supposed to be totally canon.
He was the guy that personally got the Death Star plans. He existed in that universe. He was in, he wasn't in Shadows of the Empire, but he was always around Kyle Katarn. And I guess Shadows of the Empire doesn't matter anymore either, but that was always kind of a weird sort of thing. Anyway, Shadows of the Empire. But now you got video games that aren't canon anymore, which is kind of weird, because before Lucas was always like, okay, that kind of.
As a comic book reader, canon is fucking overrated, dude. It doesn't matter.
But it's a video game. It should matter as a video game.
As long as the movie is good, I don't give a shit what it's doing to canon.